This episode is brought to you by the Painted Lady Tattoo Studio in Jacksonville, Illinois. The Painted Lady is a female-owned two-artist studio offering a range of tattoo styles with a focus on custom, thoughtful work that reflects each client's individual story. Beyond tattoos, the Painted Lady is also a creative space and growing curated shop, featuring handcrafts, yarn, art supplies, and a constantly expanding selection of materials and goods for makers and artists. Whether you're coming in for a tattoo or just stepping inside the lobby, the goal is the same: to create a space that feels inspiring, intentional, and rooted in creativity. You can find the Painted Lady on Facebook to explore the artist's work, current offerings, and appointment availability. Welcome to the Pokes and Pearls podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay, coming to you from West Central Illinois, where I live with my family, our 3 cats, and our dog. I'm a knitter, crocheter, painter, and occasional sewist. Professionally, I'm a tattoo artist and co-owner of a studio that also carries yarn, craft supplies, and a growing collection of things that we find inspiring. This podcast is a space for creativity, process, and the lives of artists and makers, sometimes just between me and you, and sometimes with guests. So grab a cup of something, settle in with your project, and I hope that you enjoy the episode. Welcome to the first official episode of the Pokes and Pearls podcast. And thank you so much for joining me. I know that the introduction episode was a little all over the place, but I promise that I do have a schedule for this, or a structure, I should say, for this episode. So yeah, welcome. Topics of this episode will include on the needles, under the needles, shiny object syndrome, loose threads, and behind the counter. I also like to finish the episode with a quick oracle reading from a couple of my favorite decks. And if that isn't something that interests you, don't worry, I will give you a warning and a goodbye before we get to that point. So without further ado, let's start the episode. This segment is called On the Needles, where I'll discuss my works in progress for knitting, crochet, sewing, and any other crafts I'm up to at the moment. So I actually haven't been knitting as much as I was in the past. I went through a bit of a slump here recently where just nothing was interesting me that usually interests me. Until actually one of my clients and then one of our friends, that's another small business owner that we work closely with, they both have announced that they are expecting new babies. And so I thought, well, another way to get kind of back into knitting right now, which it hasn't even been that long. It just feels like a really long time since I've been knitting consistently. And if it's something that you do a lot, if you go any length of time not doing it, it feels like a lot. So anyway, I thought that baby socks would be a really good kind of quick, instant gratification project. And it hasn't really turned out that way because I first cast on some fingering weight baby socks on size 1.5 millimeter needles. And that was too tedious, too fiddly for me. And then I was like, okay, well, I will just do a worsted weight version and just hold fingering weight double. But I still want it to have a really tight gauge. So I found a worsted weight baby pattern or baby sock pattern, which is going to end up being the one I'm currently working on. I just have to get there but it's called the worsted/DK version baby socks, designed by Kate Atherley. And you can find it on Ravelry. And it's a great pattern, but I don't know why I always do this, but I'm like, well, I'm going to do my own spin. So I'm going to use a size 3 needle instead of the needle that it calls for. And of course it was way too small. It has been a really long time since I've had a baby. So I'm looking at these and I'm like, well, this doesn't look right, but my babies were born at like 10 pounds each. So maybe my babies were just giants and I can't conceive the idea of a newborn baby foot. Anyway, long story short, I tried to do these baby socks 3 times in neutral colors, and I have finally landed on just following the pattern. I did go down 1 size in needles just because it's what I found. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And then I sized up from newborn to the 0 to 3 months size. And it's going really well. I finished the last baby sock last night, or the first baby sock I finished last night. I'm holding it double with a really neutral color, grayish white fingering weight sock yarn, and then alongside a speckled rainbow mint color. And so it's just very classic baby, very cute. And I'm hoping to finish those soon and start on another pair for the other baby. I haven't decided which is going to who. I also have been making a lot of crocheted items because it's again, instant gratification. It's keeping me engaged, and it's just kind of doing something for my brain right now. So as much as I love knitting and do kind of prefer to knit, I'm not going to push myself. If crochet is doing it for me right now, we're going to stick with crochet as kind of my dominant activity. So I have been doing a lot of bandana making. I have started carrying, some of my handcrafts in the tattoo shop alongside the yarn. And so I have some plushies, little baby plushies that I've been doing, leggy frogs. I have some jumping spiders. What else did I do? One chicken, which chickens are so popular to make these plushies, and I just can't figure it out. Every chicken I make, I don't like how it looks. So this one was okay, but I'm just going to keep trying. I put it in there, but it's still not quite right. So yeah, if you have a favorite crochet chicken pattern, let me know, because I just have the worst luck with these chickens. I've also been making bandanas. So for human head bandanas, like bandanas that go in your hair that I wear all the time, I actually use sock weight yarn. So they take a while. I think I do 16 rows for them using a size H crochet hook, which is a 5mm, I believe, crochet hook. And then for my dog and cat bandanas, I use a size J, which is a 6.5mm. I'm not sure. I use Susan Bates hooks exclusively, and they still use the letter system, but I feel like most other crochet hooks use the millimeter system now. So, and those are only 10 rows. Since for the pet bandanas, I use a worsted acrylic weight so that they can just be chucked in the wash, because our pets like to get dirty, in particular our dogs. So I just use loops and threads, sometimes Red Heart. What is the other one that I love this yarn from Hobby Lobby, because we do have a Hobby Lobby in Jacksonville, even though it's not my favorite hobby store, but those go really quickly because they're not sock yarn. I have a custom order that someone asked for 2 large breed dogs, 1 girl and 1 boy. So I did a kind of muted pink and mustard for the girl, and then I'm doing teal and mustard for the boy. And I finished the girls, and I just need to finish the boys, and then they'll have their little bandanas. So I'm not super happy with how the cat bandanas are turning out. I think they'll work great for a small breed dog, but for the cats, they are just a little bit bulky. So I'm wondering if I need to go down to maybe a sport weight or even a sock weight yarn for an animal bandana. I really don't know if I want to do that. So we'll see how it goes. I'm still working out the kinks, but people seem to really like the pet bandanas. I have also been making a lot of chenille scrunchies with which you just, crochet some triple crochet or treble crochets around hair ties. And so I made a whole batch of those to go in the shop, and I just sell them for $5 each. And I've started adding a charm on them. So there's a little charm that hangs off of the scrunchie and off of your ponytail. And so Rory's birthday party was 2 days ago, and she had 5 little girlfriends that came over. And so I used some pink chenille yarn, and I bought these little resin candy charms. And so there's a little candy that is hanging off of each of those charms. And I saw some of the girls were wearing them around their wrist. It's yes, they liked them. So that's really all I've been working on actively. When I do sit down and I'm not too tired and just zone out, because I do have a bit of a habit of zoning out lately. I've been working on bandanas mainly. In fact, before I came over here to record, I had just finished a bandana for our friend and hairstylist is going to be doing Rory's hair tonight because Rory's birthday is tomorrow. And Rory really wanted purple in her hair for her birthday. So it is her first time getting a permanent hair dye done. And she has actually we all have a lot of anxiety for going to the hair salon. And Brandy is my friend. She works in the same building as we have the tattoo shop. And she is such a talented, sweet, just angelic person. And my husband has gone to her and he said it's the only time that he's ever not been nervous in a hair salon. Because he really hates small talk. And Brandy, like, she'll do small talk, but I guess it just doesn't feel maybe as much pressure. Or I don't know if it's also because she kind of presents alternative and they have a goth mom and wife. And so that's why they are like, oh, she's a safe person. So yeah, we love Brandy. We're going to be going there tonight. And I wanted to make her something for dealing with us and all of our anxieties. And so I made her it's a hand dyed, it's from a homespun house. I think it's called Ash is the colorway. And it's one of her hand-dyed blacks, like tonals. And then I paired it with this like jewel-toned, variegated sock yarn that's really, really pretty. And it matches Brandy's hair because right now she has black and then some like galaxy strips in her hair. And it's very pretty. So that's what I've been working on. And we will move on to the next segment. This segment is called Under the Needles, where I'll discuss some of my favorite tattoos and tattoo shop moments that I've had recently. So recent tattoos, some of these aren't like completely recent, but they're recent for you because this is my first episode. And so I wanted to talk in particular about some tattoos that I've done that relate directly to like the fiber community. I won't always do that because I'm not always doing tattoos that relate to yarn, obviously. But I thought it went really well for the outline of the first episode. So anyway, some of the first tattoos, whenever we moved to this new studio that I was so lucky to get to do, I felt like kind of out of the gate, like within the first couple of months, I got to do crocheted plushie tattoos. And I still feel like they're some of the best tattoos that I've ever done. There's just something about the texture that I feel like I was really like humbly, I felt like I was really able to capture well, probably because of how constantly I'm around yarn. But the first ones, the plushie tattoos that I did were a Mothman and a Cthulhu. And it was for a really lovely client of mine who also has a crochet business. And I actually met her for the first time. Our local bookstore that we work with all the time. I actually have a book club that I run out of the bookstore for, we listen to an hour of a new audiobook every month, and you bring your crafts, and the shop cat will like choose one of us, and that's the lap that he's on, and then you don't get to work on your project the whole time. But anyway, I digress. The bookstore will host a book fair every couple months, and they have started collaborating with us to also offer Flash during the book fair. And it's very busy, very chaotic, but it's really fun. And it's also a really big money maker. And there will be vendors there too. And this client was one of the vendors. She had crochet plushies. And so we hit it off. She was also dressed like Mothman because this was around Halloween. Anyway, she's fantastic. She asked me if I could crochet her plushies, and they turned out so good. I love them so much. And then another, Brandy, who I just talked about, the hairstylist that we're also good friends with, she also from this client, because, you know, it's like a smallish town, so we all have some sort of overlap, but she had bought a crochet plushie for her son, a little cat, from this client of mine that I did the Cthulhu and Mothman on. And so Brandy asked me if I would if I would tattoo that crochet cat onto her. And it also turned out so good. She said when she went home after she got it done and showed her son, he was like, oh my gosh, Mom, she got all of the details. And so if I can ever impress a child, over the years, like with any art I've done, if a child is impressed like to a point of like pointing out different details or something, because kids are so observant when it comes to art in such a validating way. And he absolutely did that. He validated my tattoo so well. So since it was his plushie and he knows it by heart, it's his special toy. So yeah, I think the cat's name was Fluffmark or Fluffermark. I don't remember, but I think it was something like that. And so he is now on mom's shoulder forever. It looked so good. It healed perfectly. I hope I get to do more crochet plushie tattoos. If that becomes my niche, I will not be upset. And then another tattoo that I've done, I've actually done a couple tattoos for like previous customers of my Etsy shop. Like they traveled to come and get a tattoo from me. Both of them came during my apprenticeship at the first tattoo studio. And one drove 7 hours and the other drove 3 hours at the time. And the second one, the latter, came back again to this new studio. And the first one also wants to still come back. She just obviously lives further away. And I love these ladies so much. I still can't believe they traveled to come get a tattoo from me. Tammy owns All the Colors Yarn Co., which happens to also be some of the hand-dyed yarn that we carry at the tattoo shop. And she also works with the Fiber Universe in Peoria, Illinois, which is about 2.5 hours from where I am now. She's just fantastic. I asked her and she already said yes. So I'm definitely going to have her on the podcast at some point. We've just developed a really nice friendship and we have a lot of like common history and experiences. And so she came by again to deliver the yarn. And then I also did a Rapunzel tower, like sprouting out of a stack of books, and it has flowers and stuff. And it's really pretty. So you can see all of those tattoos on my tattoo page, which is at gothabilly.inc on Instagram. And you can also find me as Gothabilly Inc. on Facebook. I've just had such a wonderful time at this new studio that since we opened it. We've made a lot of really great connections with local small businesses. And I just have the best clients. I am brought cake at least every other week by my clients, especially since word is getting around that Aurora and I love sweet treats. So at least every other week, someone brings us a treat, like for us to share. And I've been brought blueberry lemon streusel cake, homemade cinnamon roll cake. I was brought a whole batch of like a dozen cookies from a cottage baker because I worked on her logo and that was like kind of our trade. So yeah, we're so lucky. We're so blessed to be here and I love it. This segment is called Shiny Object Syndrome, where I share what has been inspiring me lately, whether that be new patterns, yarn, art, tattoo supplies, thrifting, or anything else that might be capturing my attention. So I bought quite a few new plushie patterns recently, as well as yarn to make them. I've been kind of getting back into plushies, and I talk a little bit more about plushies in Loose Threads. So maybe that's some of the inspiration. But I bought some blanket yarn, which is like a lot bulkier than the chenille yarn that I usually use, as well as more chenille yarn. I think we're going to start carrying the chenille yarn at the shop. We had someone ask about it, and I am very happy to oblige anybody that has suggestions for like what kind of yarn they'd like to see in our shop. So that was really exciting. I actually just got off the phone with Aurora because the customer was asking some yarn questions and Aurora's still new to the yarn world. So I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening. I get to answer some yarn questions as a yarn shop owner, sort of. But anyway, so the plushie patterns that I found are from a designer called Pammy Dolls on Etsy. I got a silly goose, which I think is so cute, a mama possum and baby possums, a chameleon, a loaf cat. I think that's it. But I felt like those would all be pretty easy because I tend to get a little bit tapped out if something's too fiddly. So yeah, I'm excited to do those. Another shiny object that is actually right next to me that I am obsessed with is yarn spinners. Not like you're spinning yarn like wool into yarn. Oh, they're not called yarn spinners. They're called skein spinners. So skein spinners, my husband has been printing them with his 3D printer. And the ones that he's been making me for the shop and for me personally are like little spider webs. The base is a spider web, and then it has like the spokes that stick up, and you stab the cake of yarn or the skein of yarn down onto it, and it spins to like feed you the yarns. They're not like rolling all over the floor away from you. So I love it. It is so nice. Anyway, those have been really fun, and I'm very spoiled by them now. I just want a skein spinner on every surface so that I can never chase my yarn across the room again. And then I also recently, let's see, are we at 3 weeks ago now? I had a very big session done on my leg. The tattoo artist went and got tattooed. And I went with Aurora to a place called Springfield Classic Tattoo. It's in Springfield, Illinois. It's a newer tattoo shop full of established artists from the area, and it's located on North Dirksen Parkway, in case you're ever in the area and want to pop in. They do have walk-ins on Saturdays. And the inside was so rich in color. It had splashes of bright pink and mint blue and butter yellow. And there were banners hanging from the ceiling and art on every wall. And it was just a really cheerful place. And there was nothing but pleasant interactions from the artists and even their clients. That being said, I may be a tattoo artist, but I do not enjoy being tattooed. I have a lot of chronic illnesses, and most of those chronic illnesses mean I have a lot of inflammation whenever I have flare-ups, and a tattoo always triggers that inflammation. A tattoo will trigger inflammation anyway, obviously, but when you have an inflammatory condition, it's so much worse. So I'm usually like taking a lot of antihistamine and Tylenol and doing a lot of rest. And I will be honest, this session set me back probably 2 weeks with like managing all of my chronic illnesses. I'm just not young anymore, and it's really hard to get tattooed. It was worth it, but it was hard. So the leg outline took about 7 hours total. 2.5 of those hours were my artist drawing them directly onto my leg, which is traditional for Irezumi, which is Japanese traditional tattooing. And it's so that the piece is created to follow the client's body specifically. And then 4.5 hours of actual tattooing. So my artist's name is Alex Owens. He is at Alex Owens on Instagram if you want to see his work. And he specializes in Irezumi. I might not be saying that right. So anybody that's like familiar with Japanese, please feel free to correct me in the comments. He is super sweet. He's a very mild-mannered fella, so I was really comfortable around him. I tend to be a lot more timid around men, so he was not a hard adjustment for me at all to like give him a hard time. Aurora told me actually I was being too mean to him, so which is good for me. If I'm mean to you, then usually it means you're okay. For me, if I'm real quiet around you, I don't know, it's hit and miss. But anyway, he used to be a concert pianist, and he does these huge Japanese traditional art pieces by hand. He did some for the previous shop that he was in, and I think that he said he was working on some for this current shop, and they're beautiful, and they're like taller than me. They're huge. And it's just a really talented guy. And I also really related to him because he said at one point that he has too many hobbies. And I was like, yeah, I really feel that. If I had had my way prior to this, I definitely would have had Aurora and only Aurora tattoo me for the rest of my life. And it has nothing to do with me not liking the artwork or respecting other artists, and everything to do with how uncomfortable I am with giving myself over to someone that I don't know for something as vulnerable as being touched and tattooed and, exposed for hours, being in pain under them. So I mentioned that I'm neurodivergent. So these things really are difficult for me a lot of the time, but I also think they're difficult for literally anybody. I mean, getting tattooed is an intense experience, especially a full leg piece like what we outlined. But like Aurora said, after what we went through in the other studio, it was really important, especially for me and my tendencies to withdraw, to be around other tattoo artists and change the ideas in my head of what other tattoo shops are, I guess. I realistically knew that not all shops would be like the other studio, but I was just fine to not find out for myself. I was good to just stay in the Painted Lady, stay in my corner and not bother anybody. But Aurora, she's such a good friend. She's such an amazing artist. And she did not let me. It turns out, though, I really enjoyed seeing other artists' work and the literal buzz of the tattoo shop, the banter between myself, Aurora, and the artists there. I still don't think, for me as a tattoo artist, because I prefer a quieter and more private setting to work in, I still don't think a full studio environment is for me, but I do see the value of this experience for my own mental growth. And I appreciate that there are other shop styles to suit different artists and different clients. So I'm really glad to be one of the clients of Springfield Classic Tattoo. They treated me really, really well. And I was there twice in 1 week, once for me and once for Aurora. And each time they were so welcoming, and we're really excited to go back. So if you are in the area, I really recommend them. The studio has 6 artists and they specialize in American traditional, but I've also seen some really beautiful illustrative pieces come out of there, and of course, Japanese traditional that I have directly benefited from. I'm also reading a new book. I actually just started it last night. The hairstylist that I mentioned at some point in this episode. I've been recording over the course of 2 days, so I can't remember when I talked about Brandy, but I swear I did. She's the one with the crochet cat tattoo. Yes, I did talk about her. Anyway, I went with my daughter to get her hair done for her birthday by Brandy, and Brandy has this little, it's such a brilliant idea. If you are a hairstylist or anyone that does services like this, I think this is such a cool idea that Brandy did. She has just this little wicker bookshelf where she keeps all of her books that she's comfortable with, like renting out, not for money. I think it's like a borrow system for her clients. And so she just has a little mini library that her clients use. And she lended me Verity by Colleen Hoover. It's a very popular book right now. It's going to be a movie. And I had been curious about it because it was like so recommended by some people, and other people told me to avoid it at all costs. So far, it's a really easy read. The story starts really quickly. It uses some classic writing techniques to pull in the reader. Overall, though, the writing is just not super impressive to me. It's really bland, it's undescriptive, and just blunt. It's like, this happened, the end. Like, there's not a lot of color around it, if that really makes sense. And there are moments that I can tell that the author is wanting me to go, oh, this is so suspenseful. And I really hate that. I like cleverness to be folded in. I don't want there to be an expectation for me to find it clever that's really obvious. I want to have to find it or come to it on my own. I don't want my intelligence insulted. And I feel like the way this is written, my intelligence feels a little insulted. And I know that might sound egotistical, but you should know I'm really difficult to impress when it comes to like media, especially movies, and especially anything that's mainstream. So I already was going into this with like a really harsh lens. So take all of that with a grain of salt. If you like Colleen Hoover, you're not going to get any hate from me. This is just me being stubborn and difficult. I'm probably still going to finish it because, like I said, it's a really easy read. I am kind of curious, like, what's going on? What is the big mystery that's clearly so tragic? And like, there is just so much tragedy for some of these characters. And I'm just like, I imagine it's going to get pretty predictable just based on the writing style. But at the same time, I do acknowledge that, and this was something I did struggle with for a long time, and since therapy and learning more about being neurodivergent and stuff like that, I am beginning to be less instant rejection of things that I don't like right away, because I read this and I'm going to be able to talk to other people about it. I'm going to be able to say like, yeah, I read that book, and like go back and forth with my clients about it if they watch the movie when it comes out, or if they've read the book. I can talk to Brandy about it. So I don't always have to like it, but it is a shared experience. Like, does that make sense? It's a social foundation for some conversations with certain people. Like, I went to the movies with my husband and then our best friend and his girlfriend, and we went to see a movie called, well, you guys have probably all heard of it. I had no idea what it was because, again, I wasn't interested in it, but it's called, oh no, I can't remember. Something Mary. It has Ryan Gosling in it. And Rocky. It's not the Hail Mary, is it? I don't know. It's the space movie. Project Hail Mary. Got it. Okay. I hated that movie so much. I was so bored. I'm not a fan of space. I'm not, except for Doctor Who. And I was so bored. But that next week, that's what my clients were talking about, was that movie. And since I had gone to see it, I could kind of relate to them and we could go back and forth and it was easy conversation. So there are benefits, and I'm learning to not instantly like close something off if it's not my special interest in that moment, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's growth as a person, right? Anyway, on to the next section of the podcast. This section is called Loose Threads. Loose Threads is a segment where I discuss anything that is hanging around in my mind. It could be something historical that I found interesting, amusing, or reflection about something within the communities I'm a part of. Hot takes, anything goes. There aren't any rules with Loose Threads, so buckle in. In today's Loose Threads section, I'm going to be discussing a hot take I watched recently from a crochet channel on YouTube. I'm not going to mention the name of the channel or anything because it's not super relevant. And also, since I'm kind of disagreeing with the hot take, I don't want it to seem like I'm being combative because I'm really not. I think that's kind of the point of hot takes, right? Is just to like start conversations. So that's what I'm doing. But in this episode, the host was discussing a conversation about redundancy and trendy patterns within the fiber community. And in particular, they were talking about the crochet community and like plushies that people make for markets. They said something along the lines of, I see too many crocheters at markets using the same patterns, and it's getting kind of boring. Why can't people make things that are more original so we don't keep seeing the same ball birds in different colors that make a bluebird or a duck or a chicken, but there isn't much detail to the pattern? It seems low effort and like a quick way to make inventory instead of being proud of their craft. My reflection on this, again, is purely my own opinion, and everyone has the right to their opinion, so let's move forward with that in the back of our minds. But what my opinion is that this is kind of irrelevant and unfair of an assessment to something that is really innocent and not anyone's business but the crafter making these items. So like, I don't really understand why it's like a community discussion. And it's not just about plushies. I've seen this happen in the fiber community a lot. I've seen it happen in the tattoo community, but the tattoo community, I'm not going to touch on that in this episode, because the tattoo trends, I feel like there's a little bit more merit to like using caution with them because it's permanent. A plushie's not permanent. You know what I mean? So with a tattoo trend, I do think that you should be more discerning when it comes to trends, but maybe I'll talk about that in a completely different episode. I'm going to focus on the fiber community for right now. So I have a few points I'd like to make here on this subject. My first point is I think it's great for anyone to be creating anything if it's being done respectfully and ethically. You know, like obviously I'm not talking about extreme things, but just we're talking in this instance about plushies. They're harmless. Okay, it's okay. So I don't feel like judging someone for using a trending pattern is necessary for a few reasons. One, I've spent a lot of time researching trends in crafting communities over the years, and there are indeed trends in these communities. Not just recently, always. There were the eyelash scarves, which my grandma made all of us grandkids one of those at some point. There was lace on every dress collar in the early 90s and ruffles. Those white bunnies in clothing that were such popular sewing patterns, and now you see them at Goodwill all the time. I actually really like those bunnies and would like to get a couple. I've always liked them. I think they're so cute. Anyway, the 70s was full of crochet pot holders and vests and afghans in the classic 70s colors. And now these are all sources of nostalgia for so many of us, from cringe to just kind of reminiscent. Like some people like me are even trying to recreate some of those trends by thrifting or making home decor that mirrors the styles from that time. And more recently, there were trends that caused a bit of a ruckus in the knitting community involving like the Sophie patterns by Petite Knit. And people felt strongly about the popularity of that pattern when I'm not sure I understand why it mattered so much that so many people were enjoying the same garment, you know? My point is, I don't think any crafter should feel bad or be made to feel bad for taking part in a crafting trend, because I don't think crafting trends deserve the same shame maybe as some other trends like, I don't know. Again, we're not going to talk about the tattoo community, but there are some in there that I think people should be careful about. And I think big picture, there is something special about being able to say that you participated in viral plushies or scarves or sweaters everyone was making in 2025 and 2026, you know? My kids, if they're crafty or if they decide to become crocheters or knitters or whatever, they may be like, oh, do you remember this? And I'll be like, yeah, it was everywhere. I made a few of them, or I saw them at markets. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's history that we're living in real time. That's what trends are. They're cultural. My other reason that I disagree sort of with this hot take is that these people are still creating. So skill aside, originality aside, these crafters are sitting down with their two hands and a skill they've worked to develop, and they're making something that wasn't there before. Sure, maybe they're creating it for profit. Maybe they're choosing low stress, low cost, low effort inventory fillers. But so what? They are doing this for others ultimately. And most of the time they're doing it pretty humbly, because anything that takes time and your two hands to make is, in my opinion, a humble craft. And I don't know any crocheter or knitter truly that is getting paid what their worth is for any plushie or accessory they've made, no matter how low effort, which means some of what they're doing is just for the joy of it, the joy of making, and maybe for the joy of seeing others love their work. And to assign shame or inferiority to what someone is making based on the popularity or simplicity of the design they're using just seems so incredibly irrelevant. My third point is a little redundant, but I do want to say again that these things are being made by hand. So it might be a popular pattern, it might be mass produced on Temu somewhere, but the plushies in question are being made by someone's hand. And honestly, that's energy I just want to keep encouraging. Make the simple ball-shaped bird plushies. Change their colors based on what bird they are. Don't let anyone tell you that they're too simple or too easy. You should be challenging yourself or being more original, because that's just gatekeeping someone else's hobby, and we don't do that here. And actually, speaking of the little crochet ball birds, I'm going to tell you about how special these simple patterns can be for someone to make and for others to receive. So my daughter, every year for Valentine's Day, that I remember, this mom only does it for Valentine's Day. She will crochet a little simple toy for every child in Rory's class. One year it was like a little pink bee. And then this past year, it was one of those little ball birds and had big old eyes, and the one Rory got was purple. That was so much effort that she put in to these children just to give them something a little different for Valentine's Day at their Valentine's Day party. And a couple of years I have sent a clay wrapped crochet hook with Rory to give to the little boy to take home to his mom, because it's so much effort that she did for these kids for no return, you know? And that's what crafters are, I feel like, most of the time. It's just so humble. And yeah, I don't know. So like, I can't be mad at the ball birds, because I've got one sitting on my nightstand right now because Rory let me hold it the other day, and it's just where it ended up. And they're just so cute, and they bring so much joy, and I would never assign shame to that. Our final segment for today is called Behind the Counter, where I let you in on what's been going on in our tattoo shop, The Painted Lady, and any events we have coming up. So new to the shop, we have some Learn to Knit scarf kits from The Spinning Hand and some cute little animal hat and mitten kits. They are like shelf ready. They're in these super cute boxes. The only thing is that the scarf the animal hat and mitten kits, they didn't come with a preview picture on their boxes. So I think I'm going to need to like print them out or something, just for like, this is what is in this box. So, but either way, I'm really excited, because I've had so many of my clients or our friends we've made around town say, oh, I'd love to learn to knit, but I don't know anybody or something. And it's just a really, really great kit. Everything's in the box, and they of course could come back and ask me questions if they needed to. So I'm really excited to be offering those. We also have more fidgets and yarn bowls, crochet hooks. I made some crochet hooks with cherries and mushrooms, not together. I made cherry crochet hooks and mushroom crochet hooks. And actually, a girl was in there today looking at those, and I think she's going to buy one tomorrow, she said. So that's really exciting. And then this morning, I went through my button stash from my Etsy shop of all my polymer clay buttons and wood buttons that feature my artwork. And I packaged them all up, and I'm going to put them in a wicker basket for people to sort through if they want some unique buttons for their projects. These buttons absolutely will need to be hand washed and not soaked for long periods of time. So they would work well for toys, mittens, hats, maybe a cowl, things that won't be processed through a machine over and over. They're special and unique, and so they need a little more delicate care than plastic buttons. And a little story that I have actually about polymer clay buttons is I discovered them when my son was very tiny. This was before I ever got into polymer clay. And I was super new to knitting. I was new to the knitting world, and I was really new to like Etsy, just shopping on Etsy. I didn't even know Etsy really existed until this time. I think it would have been, Will was born in 2013. So maybe 2013, 2014, like he was little. And at the time I was obsessed with listening to the Knitmore girls. I still am. I go back and listen to their old episodes all the time because they don't actually record anymore, but their names are Jasmine and Gigi, and I really recommend them. There are so many episodes, even though they're not recording anymore. You will be busy for years listening to them because they recorded for so long. But in one of the episodes, Jasmine was talking about the polymer clay buttons that she was using for her daughter's sweater. And so I endeavored to mirror her efforts with a similar cardigan for my son. And I found Digits Designs on Etsy, and I bought this adorable set of dinosaur buttons. And they still have their shop, and I seriously can't recommend these buttons enough. I used the ones I had left over from that cardigan, which he never wore, by the way. But I used the buttons that were left over on the overalls of a knit platypus that I made him years later. And they've lasted all these years, and they're just so darling. So upcoming events for the shop, we have Our Town Books, which is our local bookshop in Jacksonville. I've mentioned it on my Instagram, and you'll hear a lot about it because I run a book club out of it, which is a crafting book club. We listen to an audiobook. I think I mentioned it at the beginning of this episode. So the Spicy Book Fair, which they host a book fair every other month or so, is on May 8th, and we'll have flash and hopefully some more fidgets and merch and earrings for people. And I'm actually kind of thinking about making like little kawaii like pins and stuff like that, like for earrings. Just, you know, it's Spicy Book Fair. It's about smut. So I was just trying to think of like something very naughty to make for earrings that will make them squeal, because it's always a good time and everyone like dresses up kind of slutty. Like we're all going to be pinup girls. So, and it is overwhelmingly women and the husbands being dragged along. So it's not by any means us thirst trapping anyone other than other women. So, which is really the point always anyway, isn't it? Speaking of book club, the next crafting audiobook club is on May 3rd. So I'm really looking forward to that because we missed April because I accidentally scheduled it on Easter Sunday. And then I was busy every other Sunday in April. So we had to unfortunately skip book club last month. Or actually this month, it's the 29th today. So we are going to be listening to In a Dark, Dark Wood. It's just the first episode of that. I've read it before and I really liked it. I believe it's by Ruth Wares, but I like her books. She does a lot of like spooky suspense books. And then we also have Summer Camp Flash Days coming up this summer. It's the last Saturday of each month, all through the summer. And we will have deals on our available Flash and Get What You Get machine. And we'll be making like a lot of fun crafts for that too. But that is what we have for events. So we will move on to close out this episode with an oracle reading. We are going to finish this episode with an oracle reading from a very special deck of mine. If oracle decks are not your thing, I completely understand, and please feel free to end the episode here, and I will catch you next time for more fiber and tattoo related content. So oracle cards are something that I've found comfort with after years of spiritual confusion and ultimately deconstruction. And like most with an evangelical background, I was taught to avoid cards at all costs. But as I've gotten older and moved away from westernized religion, I see the cards as inspiring words of art by artists. I know words of art, but they are like they're words of art. They're supposed to invoke a dialogue within yourself. I don't use them for divination. I just use them as a tool for peace and reflection. These readings are not meant to serve as spiritual direction or a replacement for one's belief system. Rather, I simply intend them for intuitive thought and inspiration in this life. The deck we are using today is by an artist named Annie Steg Gerard. Annie has a special love for the 18th century Rococo painters, am I saying that right? Who have had a large influence on her own method. She finds inspiration in their imagination and the dreamlight palette and lively brushwork that combine to create a wonderful atmosphere of enchantment. Annie exhibits her art in galleries and has done notable publishing work for clients such as Disney, Hasbro, Wizards of the Coast, Easton Press, Ballistic Publishing, and more. Her work is found in private collections all over the world. The title of this deck is called the Sacred Wood Oracle. It is a 44-card deck that comes in beautiful gold leaf accented box. It includes a guidebook written by Lauren Loggins and Annie Steg Gerard, which we will be reading from today. The illustrations are beautifully detailed Rococo reminiscent paintings, and they feature a female central character surrounded by familiars, botanicals, or seascape scenes. You can find this deck and Annie's artwork on Etsy under Annie Illustrations or on her website, anniesteg.com. So this deck is thicker than the other deck that I used, so I typically do a 1-card pull after a shuffle, either from the top of the bottom of the deck, depending on how I'm feeling. So I'm shuffling now, and I will stop when it feels right. Okay, I'm going to draw from the top today. So we drew the heron, which is welcome the calm. So let's find that in the guidebook. And the guidebook says, message, welcome the power of stillness as you walk your path. Even when the world is chaotic, one can find an inner peace that quiets the external noise. Reflect on what or who brings you a sense of tranquility. About. The heron, known for its poised and deliberate movements, symbolizes the power of calm observation and thoughtful action. Extended message. Take time to assess your surroundings before making decisions. Like the heron standing serenely in the water, remain patient and focused, and you will find the insight needed to make wise choices. Use your inner peace to guide you toward desired outcomes. And the image on this card is a very beautiful, very tall, slender woman with long, wavy blonde hair and flowers throughout her hair, and she's surrounded by lily pads and water flowers, and the backdrop is a very dark forest, and a heron is sitting behind her. Ironically, it's never ironic. That's another thing I love about these cards. There's always some connection. You can always find a connection with anything, and people a lot of times will use that to kind of dismiss things like this, but we don't have to worry about that. So the tattoo that I just got is a heron. There is a blue heron on my hip now. So that is the end of the episode, guys. Thank you so much for joining me during the first episode of the Pokes and Pearls podcast. You can find photos of the products and projects I've mentioned on my Instagram at gothabilly.knits, and you can find my tattoo work on Instagram and Facebook as gothabilly.ink. If you're ever in Jacksonville, Illinois, please feel free to stop by The Painted Lady. You can message our Facebook page, The Painted Lady, ahead of time to make sure we're there to greet you. Again, thank you so much for being here, for listening to me, and for your support. Until next time, happy crafting. Bye.